Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I've had a couple of days to test Mydei and compile my thoughts and feelings, and I decided to put all of it into one video today by starting off talking about his performance in Apoc Shadow, Pure Fiction, and Memory of Chaos, as well as comparing how good he is on various teams, how his gameplay feels, and finally consider whether it's worth it for you to pick up an E0S0 MYDEI. As we can see here, I am running the free-to-play icon on him. Once again, E0, and then this is how his build is looking right now. If you want more info on some of the character builds I'm using in this video, I did post a Memory of Chaos run with him earlier, and the character builds are at the end of that, so if you're very curious, you can go check that out. But real quick, before we get into the video, if you don't have a Mydei, then I have the perfect thing for you, and that's today's sponsor, lootbar.gg. You can use lootbar to top up in games like Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact and save up to 23%, which now applies to Xbox and PS5 as well. Lootbar leverages favorable exchange rates and uses Hoyoverse partner ads, so you can get the most affordable prices and enjoy Hoyoverse top-up bonuses. Transactions on Lootbar are simple, safe, and secure, as you only need to enter your UID, and you will get fast delivery. I decided I'm going to buy one of my friends the Express Supply Pass as a little gift, so I just go over here, I copy and paste their UID, put in the server region, and then all I have to do is go to top up. And I received the Eneric shards in literally 30 seconds. For cheaper, and creators like Ruan Shotgun to that time and Mordex Tryhard are all also collaborating with Lootbar, so they are trustworthy, and they also have some very good reviews on Trustpilot, and I just use them myself so I can vouch for the authenticity, speed, and security. New users can also get an extra 8% off, so be sure to check out Lootbar with the link in the description. Thank you to Lootbar, and back to the video. Alright, well then, starting off with Apoc Shadow, you guys have probably seen Prideone's rating of Mydei being at a 0.5 tier, which honestly I probably have to agree with. Now, Apoc Shadow is actually really interesting for Mydei, considering the fact that we're kind of not certain how he's gonna do in the game mode in the future. We are right now in an interesting one where we technically have a skill and ultimate buff, which is pretty huge for Mydei, although we don't have a HP consumption one yet, and this Apoc Shadow isn't 100% designed for Mydei. This is more of the Herta and Aglaya focused. Actually no, it's mostly the Herta focused, I would probably say, especially this half, which is very AoE. And you know, for Mydei to get a score of 3435 as a destruction unit is fairly impressive, because Apoc Shadow tends to be either very, well, it used to be more single target / break oriented, whereas now I would say it's probably more AoE centered. And for Mydei, being destruction is both a bad and a good thing in Apoc Shadow, because it kind of makes him like he's good at all of it, but he's not really a master of any of it. So I feel like Mydei will always be decent in Apoc Shadow, just maybe not always the best option for Apoc Shadow. And I mean, a score of 3435 is pretty decent here. I also messed up a bit, like for once I forgot to refresh my Tribbie skill, and yeah, that actually messed us up a fair bit, so I could have probably actually gotten a better score. Like I said, this is AoE, and the fact that Mydei only hits 3 targets instead of 5 actually nerfs him a bit in this Apoc Shadow. The problem is with Mydei's auto-targeting, we're also not sure how he's gonna fight against bosses like Vantilia, for example, who lock their weakness bar, and how he's going to do that, for example, with targeting the flowers, or maybe for someone like Aventurine. Although, to be fair, you're not really going to play him against Aventurine because he does have a 40% imaginary red, so you don't really want to do that. But yeah, I mean, his damage numbers here are good. I feel like the issue will be how he interacts with the enemies in Apoc Shadow rather than how he performs damage-wise. Damage-wise, he is still very, very good for Apoc Shadow. You know, he will clear when the enemy's weakness broken. It's just a matter of how long will it take him to weakness break the enemies, which we are yet to see. But right now, I'd say I am pretty happy with Mydei's performance in the game mode. Like I said, I don't think he'll be the best unit in Apoc Shadow, but he's going to be up there. He's still pretty good when it comes to Apoc Shadow. But moving on to Pure Fiction. Now, I'd say Mydei is actually very interesting in Pure Fiction. I actually think his performance here is pretty situational. I started off by testing him in his normal best in start hypercarry team using Tribbie, Luocha, and Sunday. And I couldn't really get a score of above 35,000, or sorry, rather, I couldn't get a score above 25k, which, you know, you want to get minimum 30k if you want to be considered decent in Pure Fiction, which unfortunately I wasn't able to do. Then I tried running a team of Mydei, Tribbie, Herta, and Luocha, so kind of a double carry team, and again, that didn't go amazingly. It was good enough, but no, once again, it got 25k, so I mean, if you have a very strong second half, then you can actually run Mydei in the first half. The issue is if you don't and you want Mydei to be your main carry in Apoc Shadow, it's not really gonna work. Sorry, in Pure Fiction rather, it's not really gonna work that way. But what we were able to do is we actually cooked up a 0 sustain team, because obviously Mydei is very good in tanking damage. You know, he has the taunt, so he takes a lot of the damage. Also in Pure Fiction, enemies tend not to deal that much damage other than the main boss, and the main boss will normally be targeting Mydei, so you actually have quite good survivability in Pure Fiction. So yeah, I actually managed to cook up this double carry team, because when I tried the solo carry team, Mydei, when only being buffed by Tribbie, first of all, didn't do insane amounts of damage, and second of all, because he wasn't really taking all that much damage, we weren't really getting his enhanced attacks a lot. Whereas now with Sunday, obviously, you know, he was consuming his HP basically twice as much, which actually made him, first of all, deal more damage. Second of all, he dealt more damage, which meant that Herta triggered her follow-up attacks even more, which also meant, you know, Tribbie dealt her additional damage even more. So yeah, this team just got a lot better when we actually ran it no sustain, and we actually managed to get a clear of 35,000, which is very good for an E0S0 MYDEI. You know, destruction units E0S0 don't tend to do that well in Pure Fiction. I also don't think this is a Pure Fiction that is built for him purely. I mean, there is a HP buff here, but I didn't even pick that. I actually picked the follow-up buff. So yeah, maybe it would have been better if I picked the HP one, but you know, I wanted to also help out our Herta a lot. So yeah, now what I will say is you are kind of reliant on there being both imaginary and ice weakness if you want to run this team. You could probably also run it if there's a lot of fire weakness and then run Himiko instead of Herta. I don't know how much better it will be, but it will still get the job done probably. Maybe then you... And yeah, maybe then Gallagher could also be decent, although I still think you kind of want to run 2 supports for Mydei, and if you don't, he won't really be worth running. So yeah, I don't think you should pull him for Pure Fiction, but if you have him lying around and there's a specific Pure Fiction you're struggling with, then maybe he could be the key to helping you get it done. Like I say, I wouldn't, you know, hold your hopes, but it is possible that he will be viable. You know, I actually wasn't able to clear this Pure Fiction with full stars before, but after getting Mydei, I actually was, which was a very pleasant surprise. So yeah, we have actually managed to successfully clear the 3.1 Pure Fiction. But yeah, with that being said, now let's move on to talking more about Mydei as well as some of his teams. Alright, well then, this now brings us onto the Memory of Chaos section. Now, I have already done a full video with E0S0 clears using Sunday, Tribbie, Mydei, and Jiaoqiu, so if you want to see that team, then you can go check that out, as well as if you want to see character builds, which I use there. What I should tell you is every single unit, every single 5-star that I'm using here that I mentioned will be E0S0. Now, when it comes to the Sunday and Tribbie team, that team cleared in 27 cycles. So like I said, since I've already covered that, I don't want to spend time on it here. Instead, here I wanted to talk about team alternatives, and I tested a couple of teams out here. To be specific, I tested about 5 teams, other than the premium one, which was Sunday Ruan Mei, Sunday Jiaoqiu, Sunday Remembrance MC, Bronya Tribbie, and Ruan and Remembrance MC plus Tribbie. So basically, I would swap out one of Sunday, or I'd swap out one of Tribbie. I did actually try to do a Bronya Pela clear, as well as I believe it was a Bronya Remembrance MC clear. Those didn't seem like they were gonna hit 25 cycles. They definitely wouldn't hit 26. So for teams like maybe Remembrance MC, Bronya Pela, Tribbie Pela, stuff like that, you're looking at probably max 25 cycles if they're all E0S0, but you're more likely to get 24 to 23 cycles, or maybe 25 to 23-ish, which I wouldn't really recommend. So yeah, I mean, you guys are going to see here, I'm just going to roll various footage of the various teams. Like I said, when it comes to the ones which felt best, I'd say Sunday, Ruan Mei, like they definitely got it in 26 cycles. It was like a very solid 26 cycles. Other than that, Sunday Remembrance MC, if you're using Ruan Mei on the second side, that was also 26 cycles. Sunday Jiaoqiu, once again 26 cycles, although that one felt a little bit worse. One thing I should mention is that a lot of these stings do have a lot of fire weakness, and so even though Ruan Mei has some anti-synergy, her buffs are just very good, whereas Jiaoqiu would have less anti-synergy, although because there's a lot of fire weakness here, he was actually weakness breaking a lot, so Mydei was getting hit less. So I'd say it probably is slightly on par to Ruan Mei and Remembrance MC, although maybe slightly worse. And then Bronya and Tribbie was also another 26 cycles, whereas Remembrance MC and Tribbie was 25 cycles. Now, my Remembrance MC isn't incredible, although Sunday Mydei Remembrance MC definitely felt better than Remembrance MC and Tribbie, which I think shows one very clear thing, and that's that you should have at least one of Sunday or Tribbie if you want to pull for Mydei for meta reasons. If you don't, then it's a bit harder to recommend him. You're probably better off saving for other characters like Casteris and Excel, maybe picking up the Herta on rerun. Although I do feel like Mydei is fairly free-to-play friendly. I feel like there are more free-to-play friendly units than Mydei himself. When it comes to, you know, like I said, Sunday and action advances, I just feel like are very, very good with Mydei, which, and like I said, in my experience, all the teams that had an action advancer got 26 cycles, whereas Remembrance MC and Tribbie, well, you know, technically RMC does action advance, it was only a 25 cycle. Some things I should note, my Mydei build is... I didn't change my Mydei build throughout this, so it is kind of a Sunday build, whereas when we weren't playing with Sunday, like when we were playing Bronya or when we were playing RMC, he was 20 courage short, so maybe I should have swapped up his build a little bit, although I didn't. So maybe my runs are slightly Sunday biased. Again, like I said, this isn't like any numerical. I'm not a theory crafter, I'm not a proper tester, I'm just going off feeling to play. And like I said, when it came to the best feeling, obviously Sunday Tribbie, but other than that, Sunday Ruan May and Sunday Remembrance MC I'd say are best. If you don't have Sunday, then Bronya Tribbie or Remembrance MC and Tribbie. And like I said, if you don't have neither, then, you know, it can be a little bit rough for Mydei. One thing we should note is that, you know, normally when a Memory of Chaos first comes out, it is very centered around the featured unit, whereas this one, it isn't. So this is more of Mydei's realistic runs. In the next MOC, he will likely perform better, but then in the one after that, I don't know exactly how he's going to perform. Probably back to this level, and maybe it will be 4 or 5 MOCs we see until, you know, his cycle clears drop by about 1, but it shouldn't be too much unless there is no imaginary weakness or if enemies just don't hit you. But yeah, Mydei will still be a solid character at E0S0, although you do want at least one very good support for him. And then, yeah, the thing is, we don't know what other units are coming out in the future. We don't know whether maybe he'll work in Casteris' team. She seems like she'll be HP consuming, so maybe they'll synergize together. Maybe if there's any new healers coming out, which also are buffers, kind of like Huohuo, maybe that would also be good for Mydei. So I'd say if you don't have Tribbie or Sunday, but you really, really like him, and I do want to move on now a bit from Memory of Curse. I will still keep on flashing up videos from my clears, but I do want to talk more about his... Actually, first, I do want to talk about his gameplay before we talk about whether you should pull him. When it comes to his gameplay, you know, the massive thing is the auto-targeting. And does the auto-targeting bother me? Sometimes. I did kind of mention this in my Tribbie Sunday run. However, it does feel like he will often target the enemies who have a higher HP percentage first. What I've noticed is, first, he'll target enemies with 2 kind of like lives. So for example, if the Trusting had a lower HP percentage than the robot, he would still go for the Trusting because he seems to have 2 bars of HP. That could be wrong, but that's what it seems like. And then when it comes to how he chooses, it seems like if they both only have 1 life, then he will go for the one which has lower HP percentage, which actually sometimes is a problem. Because, I mean, first of all, obviously you have stuff like gimmicks, where sometimes, like in Apoc Shadow, you want to break little summons first. In this case, I actually feel like the problem is, since he goes for HP percentage, he doesn't actually look at HP values. For example, on the first half, the IPC robot has a higher HP value than the other one, you know, like the big fat one. But he will sometimes go for the smaller one if he has a higher HP percentage. So yeah, that is sometimes annoying, and it can sometimes cost you like 1 cycle on the first half, which, you know, the first half is actually pretty important because your action value does reset for the second side. So if you just about clear in the first half, you actually get a massive advantage on the second side when it comes to your clear speed. So it can be a bit annoying, although Mydei is quite strong, that shouldn't be an issue for the foreseeable future. And if he keeps getting good supports, then it will be a complete non-issue, I feel like, until maybe like 1 or 2 years later. Then again, we don't know how long units will last in HSR nowadays. We don't know what they're going to do with buffing units, power creep, HP inflation. We don't know if that's a one-off or how it's going to go. So it is difficult to recommend units fully based on meta, although I will say if you just like him, you know, you can just pull him. So yeah, that's the only gameplay issue I find, which does segue us nicely into whether you should pull him, as I was kind of touching on. And my verdict is, if you have both Tribbie and Sunday, then you shouldn't be reluctant to pull him whatsoever. He will serve you very, very well. If you have one of them, and then, you know, that's good enough, I think. Maybe they'll release future supports, which will be good for him, which you could pull for. Or maybe that's just enough, you know, like I said, Remembrance MC everyone should have, so, you know, decent alternative. But yeah, if you have one of Sunday or Tribbie, that should be enough for him to be at least decent. Maybe not necessarily tier 0, like I would say he is in Memory of Chaos, because this guy is very, very good in Memory of Chaos. I do feel like he is currently my best MOC unit, although, you know, we'll have to see how that goes on for a long period of time. So yeah, one of Sunday or Tribbie, still decent, both very excellent pull. If you don't have either, then if you're only pulling for meta, then I wouldn't get him. If you just like him and you don't really care too much about meta, which to be fair, with HP inflation right now, if you're putting only E0S0 units, you might, maybe the best approach is to not worry that much about endgame and just have fun with the game. That's what I feel like. For example, if I can't clear a Pure Fiction, I won't spend 5 hours trying to do it. If I feel like I'm getting gated by a character check or a HP check, then I'll just, you know, say GG, go next, and I'll just wait until the next cycle. So yeah, I feel like if you like Mydei, don't feel bad about having to pull for him. He is still a very strong unit, although, like I said, if you don't have either support, maybe there will be supports in the future which are good for him, like I mentioned, maybe Casterus, maybe another healer, who knows. Maybe even another support, because I don't know if Sunday's probably not designed for him, although I doubt they want to power creep Sunday that soon, so probably not another action advancer, and action advances are quite nice from Mydei, so yeah. Like I said, so basically, whether you should pull him, I wouldn't say it has anything to do with Mydei himself. I'd say it depends on the supports. If you do have the supports, or at least half of them, go for him. If not, and you're pulling for meta, don't pull. If you just like him, pull him anyway. Who cares? Maybe he'll synergize with future units, and if you have at least one, once again, maybe he'll synergize with future units. So yeah, I feel like I've made my point clear. So basically, if you like him, just pull for him. You know, what's stopping you? So yeah, that's always my thoughts on the matter. If you like a character, just pull for him. Who's going to tell you to stop? So yeah, with that being said, hopefully you guys found this helpful, enjoyable. Let me know your thoughts down below on Mydei and whether you're planning on pulling him. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time.